need to speak with him. So you see, we are a kind of pirate warriors. We don't kind of go by the rules, or rather we create our own rules, and this is what we've become known for. And I expect that lots of you, when you've had to develop, you know, obviously it's a case-by-case basis, but when you have to start from scratch and you have to develop kind of new kinds of way of doing things in the creative industries, I expect you have to be innovative, not only with your creative skills, but also with how you run your companies and how you navigate the space and how you position yourselves. It's kind of quite a new field. And so if you start inventing your own rules and forging some new paths that are really good, then actually these other guys start to pay attention and go, hang on a second, these guys are doing things in a new way and this is really good. So there is a great deal of competence that's being developed in the creative industries, and I have been a champion of it, or become by default a champion of it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. First, to tell you what those Music Tech Fest do, we started in London in 2012. I launched it as kind of with this idea that I was going to just do a couple of little you know, workshops to unite a few kind of cool people in the same space, to see we can do kind of a jamming session, so to speak, and just kind of invent some new stuff. And then it turned out that from the beginning, I mean, I went around and saw lots of people and said, this is the idea, what should we do? And they went, that's so cool, let's do it. So like ended up with 3-day festival right from the start, no money, had to go and raise some more money. Ended up with all the big brands like BBC, MI, all these guys. And basically guys hacking, and then other guys kind of turning color into sound through synesthesia, and all sorts of, like, people scanning each other's t-shirts. These t-shirts are scannable. All of our t-shirts are scannable, and they launch playlists and stuff, and we release unique tracks on them and stuff. So I mean, crazy stuff right from the start, and it's toured the world since. We've done 10 very large events. This is Wellington, New Zealand. 10 really large festivals of 3 days, in fact even longer. The last one in Berlin was even longer, I'll tell you about that. And then quite a lot of the smaller ones. And here we ended up hacking into indigenous instruments. So rather, someone hacked a didgeridoo, kind of mounted a speaker on one end, started to double up the sound inside the didgeridoo, and then beatboxed on the other side. And then all these guys went, "Can you hack into this?" And it's just like this massive, great, big kind of carved ancient instrument that's probably worth like a fortune. And I'm like going, "You really want us to hack into this?" It was really great. So this is the sort of stuff that happens. People just come out of everywhere and they say, "Can we join in?" And then crazy stuff happens. So for instance, this is the stage of the London Symphony Orchestra, the Barbican in London. We were 3 times in London so far. And that's Lou Edmonds from Public Image Limited. If any of you, well, some of you are into Nirvana land, but this is a bit earlier. Public Image Limited, who came out of the Sex Pistols, the band that evolved from that. For those who are old enough, maybe you'll know. So Lou Edmonds on a hacked guitar, it's half Turkish, half something else. There are 3 guys here that you can't see. They hacked into Wiimotes, and they were making sounds with that. There was a 3D printer on drums, and there was a punk duo that they hacked into sort of other gaming controllers. Basically, we call this gunk, geek punk. So sort of stuff like this happens, and then I will let you see some of the things so that you get a flavor.
Can't forget about the production cost. Can't forget about the production cost. Can't forget.
The boys called me the Towering Inferno, but perhaps because the headmaster was also a pipe smoker.
So even kids take part. So kids are absolutely great in this space. And just to show you the sort of reactions we get when they get on stage with stuff they invented. So basically what's wonderful about this environment is that it seems that the kids just love it so much. They get into technology, they get into developing and into coding like after 3 hours, and the parents come to us and go, how did you do this? They were never interested in maths, they were never interested in the school curriculum, nothing, you know, and suddenly they're there. I mean, you know, I mean, you're in the gaming and in that sector as well, kids are just absolutely like tops. So basically it's just really the kind of environment you create for them, and suddenly they want to be technologists, they want to be developers, and this is the kind of kids that we were talking about earlier, that you need to kind of have the new generations that contribute with the skills to the companies that you're building. So this is kind of important. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is basically in, let me see if it just starts by itself. Okay, well first we go to Obama. So this is edition of Wired magazine from November. It was guest edited by Barack Obama, and we were very, very honored to be listed, we never expected this, as one of the future technology frontiers. So Music Tech Fest with Victoria Modesta, the artist that was representing us. I will show you what we did with her when we were scaling up for Berlin last year, and we had more than 500 people. It's like a giant jam, if you like, a giant creative laboratory. More than 500 people making things, all at the same time over a period of days. Some of the labs ran for the whole week. So we were able to cook up some kind of crazy stuff. And basically, when we decided that we were going to go that big, and when we had such a big community, because we now run over 5,000 creative innovators from all over the world. And basically, we source out for different projects, different people from this big pool. And so when we were going that big as one event with more than 500 people making, I said, okay, we need an icon for the community, but it needs to be a woman. I'm very, very proud to say we have 50% women in our laboratories easily. Compared to any other kind of hackathon that you know, typical hackathons attract 17% women. We have easily 50. So basically, we use all the talent that there is, put it that way. So basically, it had to be a woman, it had to be someone who's into technology, into new technologies, and who's not afraid of it, and someone who's also a champion of accessibility, because accessibility, and that's a relative term, because accessibility just means every one of us is able to a different extent in different ways. So we don't have a division between disability and ability, right? In our world, it's just a sliding scale, and everybody can learn from each other. So this is why we wanted to make a point of this, that what we were trying to do is make people extraordinary, regardless of what they are, what they have, what abilities they currently have. And Victoria Modesta, that you see on the image here, she is a bionic artist, and a champion of both accessibility and technology, and this was a perfect icon for our community, for both men and women in our community. So I'm going to show you the lab. This is from the next clip is from the MIT Media Lab documentary that they made about us. They sent a team to work with us, and they made a documentary about it.
We work around the theme of transhumanism and working on projects where we extend our bodies through technology. So I'm a cyborg myself. I have 2 NFC implants, one here and one here. So this is my cyborg heart. In the tattoo here I have a chip where I will be planting audio, and I'm also creating visuals for it. So there will be like a video played, and the next test will be a game. So I'm planning to turn myself into an arcade cabinet, basically. So Victoria will be singing one of her new songs, and working together with a lot of artists here, where technology is used in different ways. There will be sensors on the nails, for example, and on the skin, and most of all we have the EEG sensor. So there will be 3 sensors on the performance's head, hidden in the hair, and those will trigger the color of her costume.
So my name is Francisco. and I work in a team called MuArts, where we try to bring neurosciences and the neuroscientific knowledge into the arts. Neurofeedback is a clinic, it has begun as a clinical technique to teach people how they could control their emotions. If you have a device like this that can show you that you are getting anxious because the lights of your trousers are shining, you can control it in advance rather than just notice that you're anxious when you passed out. This is the brain-computer interface where we test all the algorithms, but then to work with Victoria, we need to hide this, so we will use just these electrodes and these wires. She has to train a little bit before, but after training, she consciously can control the color and the projections and the light of her dress with her mind. So every time she's more excited, she will like light up the dress. If she's more meditative, more calm down, eyes closed, the dress will be slightly blue.
How's it going? Each time I've been discovering a new form of sort of technological expression. To me, it feels like a very emotional experience. However, a lot of presentations that I have seen of technology tend to be not very emotional at all. Is it something that you use to extend your existing human qualities, or is it something completely alien and cold?
Right, so you saw Yasmin is Drake. She currently now, after that, she has started to run the lab for electronic arts in Stockholm. So she's there at the moment. We need to bring her up here. I'm going to drag her up here at some point. So that's her implant. This is a cyborg heart. She can actually scan it. It will scan her heart, but she actually turns herself into an arcade cabinet, as you heard. So it's the next generation jam. And this is the kind of stuff we're doing. And then, of course, this is this kind of crazy stuff where, for instance, there's a super fashion tech designer called Anouk Wipprecht. She's from the Netherlands. And she created a prosthetic leg for Victoria. You noticed, obviously, that she's missing a leg. And she created a prosthetic leg that creates smoke effects for the stage. So she can actually do special effects with some of her bodily parts. So her bodily parts, the ones that are added, are actually far better than the ones we've got because they do cool things. Going on was that basically they mount a Muse headset on her, and then it reads her neurofeedback that gets visualized or sonified. In the case of the performance, the lights on her dress were LEDs. And of course, they were visualizing what the neurofeedback was telling them, so they would change color. But of course, this is typical for us humans. Like, we're so cool. I mean, you know when you get a new gaming controller, right? I mean, you know that you can adapt really quickly at reacting to the game and what the game tries to get you to do. So with this, you actually start to control, after a while, you start to train yourself to control the color. So you kind of figure out, oh, I'm feeling like this, therefore it's gone, like he says, blue or whatever. Then you go, if I want to turn it red, what do I have to think about, or how do I have to train my emotions to be in order for it to go red? So this is kind of, you're starting to use this as a controller, which is really what's really cool about it. This is like her being fitted, because the point was, let's not make her normal. You know, none of us want to be normal. We want to be cool. We want to be extraordinary. We want to be able to do extra things. So this is what we're doing. You see, like, she's fitted in her hair, in all sorts of sensors and all sorts of different things that she was able to do for the stage. This project, and this is what's interesting about it. The game element in this project was then, this project was really successful. So this is Chico, he's a neuroscientist, and this is his group is called MuArts. They're based in Porto, in Portugal. They were the ones who fitted Victoria with these sensors. Basically, as a follow-up to the projects, we supported this project from kind of initial idea to this level, where it was first prototype. And then they won 1 million funding to look at gaming and neurofeedback. And so that's what they're working on at the moment. So just to show you that this is an interesting path, because we kind of experiment with new stuff, and you have new ideas for gaming. But basically, it's not only important for the gaming industry to look at these kind of new ways of interacting, or for the neurofeedback or neuroscience research, because it works for them too. So they are with their feet on both sides. But also, it's super important for all this big industry out there that want to know new ways in which humans can interact with machinery or with systems. And this is where, the competence of this crowd here starts to be like, whoa, this is like amazing, because they haven't got a clue how to start with these new kinds of systems. So this is what's important about it. So what has happened, I'm not showing you my award because I'm going to go, you've already heard that I had an award. But I think what's really important about this award is first time ever that creative industries have got anything like this. This is why I was particularly proud. I want to represent the creative industries in this way because I have claimed for many, many years, I'm ex-Royal College of Art in London. And even at that time, even the top college in the world, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff, didn't give you the cachet that the scientists had because they had proof, they had evidence, they were always right. And we were just drawing pretty pictures, we were being looked at in this way. And then I decided to put my foot in the middle of the science community, and I decided to work with music AI. And I realized at first I was hugely frightened and humble and thinking, what am I doing? And then I realized very quickly that our perspective and our way of thinking is super important for that to actually work. But what we have is this idea that is really important if you're going to get people to use something, right? And to interact with something. And so it turned out that as the time went on and as I started to apply my training from the creative industries to some of the challenges from science and from data analysis and from sound signal processing, etc., like all the stuff that's very kind of engineering-y, it turned out that the combination of the two types of knowledge was really key to actually make systems that really work. What we've realized is that in order to get our crowd to be really good at what they do, we give them some new tools. So basically some of this knowledge from these kind of scientific research laboratories and audio signal processing, whatever else, we wrapped into interfaces. So like if you ever attended a kind of hackathon, you get a bunch of APIs of some kind of data. But we thought it was really important to develop some tangible user interfaces, some that solved some new problems. Arduino, for instance, has a real problem with latency. Especially when it comes to sound, when it comes to effects and stuff like that, you can't run it. So we developed some new stuff. And when we gave new kinds of tools into people's hands, miracles happened. It was just kind of you name it, you come up with any idea. They had 11 products immediately, seed ideas that could turn into products that we supported, and they could after 3 or 4 months, they had prototypes, and it was just all investable, all really genuine, proper business ideas. Potential, startup ideas, and some of them really succeeded. One of them was, for instance, the neurofeedback one. So that's something that now the European Commission pays attention to. For instance, the fact that if you create a toolkit that bridges between that knowledge and something that creative people can take on board and do something with, they realize that this is really important. So the creative testbed is really, really important. And then we run it through the industry testbed, market testbed. And it sounds really kind of businessy and dry, but actually what really happens here, in the industry testbed, we hook the engineers from industry together with the guys, and they develop together. Not on a day-to-day basis, but on a regular basis. So that there is no breakdown in, when you're a developer and you have this idea and you get stuck at some point with your idea, it can be really, really hard, demotivating. And at that point, if you get an injection from the guy who's developed the original kit and it tells you how to solve that problem, you just removed the roadblock. So suddenly this was it took 3 to 4 months and we just had all the stuff working. And then the market testbed, again, is not boring stuff of, let's see who likes it, but actually getting early adoption. super early in, like getting people to kind of just use it, and test it, and actually just bounce back kind of with ideas and stuff like that. So very, very hands-on. Not like a kind of dry system. And then this was key, because it's an open innovation. It's this kind of, you know, when you hear this kind of open innovation stuff, and of course it came from open source kind of mentality. And we've even created already in 2011 open product licenses for tangible products that you could pass to another person to develop according to a set of, like a proper license, something that didn't exist before. It's very, very hard to do for the three-dimensional space. It's a completely different legal system because it's based on patenting. That's another conversation. We can have that. But we already developed those. And this was a case of saying, okay, these, you know, we have the original stuff that the researchers have done. Then we have the interfaces. Someone owns those. And then someone owns the new idea that's built on top of. So basically kind of like the open source code principle, like you know who authored this part, except this is kind of supported with contracts. The reason why this is important is that the moment you have an idea that you can do a patent search, and our first patent search was 4 months after the seed ideas, the first seed ideas, the first patent search proved that nothing like that existed already. It's Swedish, filed as a Swedish patent, in fact, since. So the reason why we were able to do that, and not at that point go, oh shit, now we're going to have to negotiate with the big guys, and we're going to get their lawyers in, and now we're going to be, it's like, forget it. You've lost the momentum. You know, someone else is going to file some idea similar to that if you're having to go through that process at that point. So the reason why this was important was set all that up front, and everybody knew, okay, this is where mine stops, this guy starts. And this is my contract, that's their contract. And we do it in layers. So if I build on top of your idea, here's my contract. And it actually ends up being an open innovation system, which nobody, when you ask guys from industry, not just creative industry, industries out there, what's open innovation? They go, oh yeah, it's stuff where you give your IP for free and then people run off with it. That's what they tell you. The truth is, open innovation is brilliant if you set it up properly. And then this is kind of the market adoption readiness levels. I mean, it's heavy language if you'd be bored with this kind of language, but actually there's something good about this. And if you're an investor, it'll probably resonate. Typically, the way that technology was always traditionally developed was based on a NASA model. The way they developed rocket ships. They had technology readiness levels. You can look them up on Wiki. There's 9 levels of testing, prototyping, testing again, until you're absolutely 100% bulletproof and you can send people to space. Now, most of us are not sending people to space or developing rockets, so it's actually a bit kind of, actually it's too slow, too expensive to do it that way. It just doesn't work. So, and things were still measured in this way. Officially, in all the European projects. So basically, I suggested that what we should do is look at first, what's our level of risk? Is this application very risky? Can we get it to early adopters as soon as possible? Can we get lots of data from the use? And can we develop in that way so that we don't end up waiting for the technology to be ready of whatever one person thinks that it's that means, you know, because readiness, it's a relative term. You know, you may imagine that this technology is going to do X, Y, and Z, but when you give it to people, it turns out that actually there are some other things you've overlooked. So this actually turns out quite useful, because if you can get early adopters and data at early stages of development, and you can see that there's traction and that there's a huge amount of use and there's a huge amount of potential use further down the line, you have a different investment proposition. So, and of course, then what happened as a result of what we were doing is the industry donated IP to our toolkit, because they said, wow, that's really cool, this is really useful. Actually, if we give you our IP rather than trying to engage people on the side and with our products, we put it in our toolkit, people can combine all the different tools, and suddenly, you know, we have a lot more products, and most importantly, we have new market niches that people invent by combining our product with something else. So this is something that's pretty rad. It's not been done before. We're attempting to do it in Europe. We're gonna do it at the Open Innovation Conference. I'm gonna launch it. Just did a TED talk about kind of what's behind it, and I'm going to announce that we are going to get big industry on board to participate in this. Luckily, because for some reason they have been listening to us, because all the big guys have now been paying attention to these new systems we're developing, and they kind of start to make sense to them. As I say, because they were thinking open innovation is just something that you, I don't know, they couldn't figure out what you do with it commercially. Then there is a bit of a cachet that we can present to the big guys from industry. I'm now advisor to not just the European Commission, but also to several governments, and now the G7 countries as well, officially as of September, when we're going to kick off with Innovation Advisory. There's 5 of us from the world that have been chosen for this. And it's quite a challenge, as you can imagine, in the current political climate. I'm very happy to work with a Canadian chap. He's very amiable, but I don't know about the orange face. It's going to be very interesting. But anyway, so this is the sort of stuff that now we can kind of have a little bit of backing from some of these guys at the top who say, hey, you know, industry, you should try this, because there are new ways in which we can progress. And what's interesting about it is that my personal belief is that the creative industry are really setting an example, and they can come to us for competence. So I think what's really important about this, I mean, this is our ecosystem, the sort of people that you notice some Umeå stuff in there as well, because we ran one in Umeå. This is the kind of companies that and institutions and organizations that have supported us for so far, more than 100. It's completely crazy. We never set out with something like that. What I'm trying to say is that we have got knowledge in this kind of cluster, in this kind of ecosystem, that also is important for industries that are outside the creative industry. So not just Hollywood, but other guys like, you know, Komatsu. Those kinds of guys. And there is great potential in creating a wider innovation ecosystem that springs out of the Arctic Game Lab. And there's nothing wrong with aiming high. Someone told me that is it Finland? In Finland there is a saying that if you try and climb the spruce, you will fall on the juniper, which is basically, you know, exactly the opposite from in English or American English. You say if you aim for the moon, you hit the stars or something. You know, so basically aim high, and you hit something really good. So my understanding is that in Finland it is like if you try and aim too high, you just fall on something very spiky. So basically, I still side on this front with the English-speaking world to say let's aim high. And let's get as many people involved, let's get as many people on our cause as possible, and promote this area as an area of competence that can inform, for instance, the rest of industry of how you interact with machines, how you interact with systems, how people behave in sort of these kinds of environments. So it's not just about then getting someone to finance your game, but there may be all sorts of other ways in which you can finance your ecosystem, because these guys have the cash. So basically, I hope that message resonates with some of you. I am very, very happy to help with this, because we have moved to Umeå from London. Everybody said we were crazy, but we saw what was happening up here in this part of the world, and we thought, this is awesome. It's exactly what we've been wanting to put together, like just the range of competence and talent that's in one area that is really manageable. Because the problem is, for instance, in London, it's all in bits, and it's huge, and it's a bit too big, you know. And what you need is just the right kind of balance of really, really high level brains, and the talent, and then the area that's manageable. And this is, I think, what's happening up here. So we thought, this is awesome. We just wanna try and do something here. So very happy to help with the Arctic Game Lab and see what we can do. Thanks.